The curious thing about life is that it rarely waits for you to be ready. In fact, it seems to have a peculiar sense of humor. The more you cling to what is familiar, the more insistently the universe whispers, nudges, shakes, and finally sweeps you forward. It is as if existence itself delights in reminding you that change is not an intruder, but the very breath of life. And the moment you resist it, you quicken its pace, as though your refusal becomes the very wind that pushes you into the next moment. Imagine standing on the edge of the ocean, watching the waves roll in. You try to hold the water back with your hands. You brace your feet in the sand, determined to keep the shoreline exactly as it is. But the harder you press, the faster the water seeps through your fingers. The tide seems to advance more eagerly, precisely because you attempt to fix it in place. It is a futile but revealing experiment. Life works much the same way. There is an old rhythm woven into the fabric of existence, a dance that does not wait for your permission. And yet most people live as though life ought to freeze on command. You want the pleasant moments to stay, the difficult ones to go away, and the future to unfold only according to your wishes. You long for certainty, for a solid ground that nothing can disturb. Yet you walk through a world made entirely of motion. So you resist. You tense your body, tighten your mind, and insist that things remain as they were. But have you noticed what happens then? The very thing you fear arrives more quickly. The job you tried desperately to keep slips away. The relationship you held onto with white knuckles unravels. The identity you constructed begins to crumble. And you protest. You say, "No, not this, not now." But the universe does not consult your preferences. It continues its dance. And in doing so, it invites you to see that what you call resistance is simply your refusal to participate in the flow of being. Now consider the leaf of a tree in autumn. If it resists its falling, it only hastens its own decay. If it clings fearfully to the branch, it dries out faster. But when it loosens, when it yields to the breeze, its descent becomes gentle. It becomes part of the season rather than an opponent of it. Human beings, though far more complicated than leaves, are not exempt from this simple truth. To resist the natural movement of life is to accelerate your own discomfort. We are taught from childhood to be in control. Control your emotions. Control your future. Control your image, your reputation, your destiny. But this desire for control often comes from fear, and fear, when unexamined, becomes a prison. You mistake resistance for strength. You imagine that to surrender is to lose. Yet, paradoxically, surrender is the very thing that grants you freedom. The leaf that lets go travels farther than the one that clings. When you resist change, you are resisting the nature of the world. Everything is in motion. Stars expand and collapse. Seasons shift. Bodies age. Thoughts come and go like clouds across a vast sky. Even the self you call me is not stable. It is a process, a story being told moment by moment. Yet you assign it a fixed shape and then suffer when it inevitably transforms. It is no wonder then that change seems to accelerate when you resist it. For your resistance is like a dam placed in the middle of a river. The water builds, pressure rises, and eventually the dam bursts with far more force than the natural flow would have carried. What you call sudden disruption is often only the release of what you have been holding back. But perhaps the most fascinating part is this: when you stop resisting, change does not overwhelm you. It reveals itself as something gentle, even compassionate. It shows you what you no longer need. It frees the energy you have spent clenching your fists. It opens the space for something new. And the moment you yield, you discover that change has never been your enemy. It has been your teacher all along. Now let us wander more deeply into this mystery, into the subtle ways the ego attempts to protect itself, and how that very effort hastens the transformations it fears most. The ego, you see, is a rather nervous creature. It imagines itself to be the captain of the ship, charting a course through time, steering life according to plans and preferences. But beneath its confident posture lies a trembling uncertainty. For the ego knows, somewhere in the quiet corners of awareness, that the world does not actually obey it. Change arrives uninvited. Loss sneaks in through the back door. Joy, too, comes unexpectedly. Life does not wait for the ego to approve its timing. So the ego resists. It says, I must not lose this. I must avoid that. I must preserve what I know. And yet, in its effort to hold the world still, it produces the very turbulence it fears. For resistance tightens the body, narrows the mind, and amplifies whatever you try to push away. Have you ever noticed how a worry becomes larger when you try not to think about it? Or how a truth becomes more urgent the more you deny it? This is why change seems to accelerate when you resist it. You give it energy. You feed it with fear. You turn it from a gentle tide into a crashing wave. But the moment you stop resisting, the wave softens again into water, which was all it ever was. Resistance is the stiffening of life. Surrender is its softening. People often imagine surrender as a kind of defeat, as if life were an enemy to be conquered. But surrender simply means allowing life to be what it is. It means aligning with reality instead of arguing with it. And when you do that, you discover something astonishing. Reality is not nearly as threatening as your imagination makes it out to be. Let me offer you a small image. Picture yourself in a river. If you plant your feet and fight the current, you will be knocked off balance. The water will batter your legs. You will exhaust yourself. But if you lift your feet, if you let the river take you, you float. The same force that seemed hostile becomes supportive. It carries you, gently or swiftly, but always forward. The river does not change, only your relationship to it does. In the same way, life flows whether you resist it or not. Your struggle is optional. Your suffering, to a great extent, is the tension created between what is and what you insist must be. And once you see that, something within you loosens. It is like unclenching a fist you did not know you were making. Now, this does not mean passivity. It does not mean sitting idly while life sweeps you along. It means participation. It means joining the dance rather than trying to lead it. For life is far too vast, too intricate, too playful to be commanded by the small and anxious voice of the ego. When you dance, you do not control the music. You move with it. You adapt. You respond. You let the rhythm guide your steps. Change is the music of existence, and you are invited to dance. Think of the times in your life when something ended. A job, a relationship, a season of identity. At first, you resisted. You said, "This must not happen." But later, perhaps years later, you saw that the ending created space. A doorway appeared where you thought a wall had been. Something new entered, something unexpected. And if you are honest, you might even admit that the new life felt more true than the old one you tried so hard to protect. Life often knows you better than you know yourself. This is why surrender is not the loss of control, but the recognition that control was never the point. Life is not a machine to operate. It is a mystery to participate in. And the more you soften into that mystery, the more gracefully you move through it. The curious paradox is that once you stop resisting change, change no longer threatens you. It becomes a companion rather than a pursuer. You begin to see that every transformation, even the ones wrapped in discomfort, carries a kind of wisdom. The universe is forever shaping you, not out of cruelty, but out of creativity. And so we arrive at a gentle understanding. The faster change seems to come, the more it is asking you to let go, to release the tight grip on what no longer serves you, to trust the flowing nature of reality, to see that you are not separate from life, but an expression of it. When you stop resisting, you return to your natural state, which is fluid, open, responsive. You rediscover the ease that was always available. And in that ease, a spaciousness appears, a clarity, a quiet joy. You realize that life has never been against you. It has only been inviting you to join its movement. So breathe, loosen, step into the stream. Let yourself be carried, and you will find, perhaps to your delight, that change is not something to fear. It is the very heartbeat of existence. It is the pulse that keeps the world alive. It is the movement through which you continue to discover who and what you truly are. Allow it, welcome it, dance with it, and life will reveal its secret, that the freedom you seek has been flowing all around you, waiting only for you to stop resisting and begin to move with the rhythm of the world.